after 8 or 9 trips. But the gardening was even more meditative and therapeutic. There's something about digging your hands in the dirt, growing your own food, picking a tomato off the vine, bringing it in the house, washing it off, slicing it, and deep frying it and serving it as fried green tomatoes were part of dinner. There's something holy about that, I think. Something that, for me, reminded me immediately of my mother, who grew up on the farm and who, for a while when I was a kid, she had her own gardening activities that she was committed to. And I always remember her being in her garden barefooted and pulling tomatoes right off the vine and wiping them off on her dress and then eating them, standing there in the dirt like they were apples. That always seemed yucky to me as a kid, but I really appreciated watching her face and knowing that she really, really enjoyed what she was tasting. But I also recognized as an adult that she was tasting more than the fruit itself, that the experience, the idea of your own personal labor rewarding you for that effort. And also, I think, a kind of connection to the land that we have lost living in the city. The whole give and take, yin yang, you taking care of the land taking care of you, with oxygen and food is really important in a lot of indigenous communities, but not so much in ours anymore because, we eat in restaurants. We take oxygen for granted. But I'm going to read a poem that's about what we were discovering about the power of gardening and how different it was for my wife versus myself, and maybe women in general. This is called Baptism by Dirt for Shauna. All believers know about the power of water, though not enough about the power of dirt. My mama used to walk barefoot in our vegetable garden, get down on her hands and knees and almost pray in the dirt. My wife and I and our 2-year-old built and planted 3 raised bed gardens. Watching her dip her fingers into the dirt to coddle what will feed us reminds me of Mama and then. What is it about what women know, about nurturing a seed into a piece of fruit, about believing in the power of dirt and suns and water? I returned from our labor with sore knees and back, fingernails and hands caked with dirt. She floats back into the house cleaner, somehow less burdened, as if she spent the weekend burying all her heavy things, as if she whispered to something sacred and it whispered something back. So if you're stressed and you're looking for some kind of healthy outlet, plant a garden. One of the things that made us need that kind of time, to de-stress, to keep our hands busy, was having so many friends around the country and outside the United States, and trying to keep up with what was happening in the news as we learned more and more about COVID and started to see its side effects. And then we're traumatized by what was happening when people actually passed on and were not able to attend the service. Once that started becoming reality and got close and close to our doors, I started also thinking about, who was suffering the most. And one of my first jobs in the world was working in a nursing home, senior facility. So I have fond memories of what it takes to do that job. But when I started reading how many deaths were occurring in these assisted living facilities, it was alarming, and it inspired this particular poem called Old School Math. Life In most assisted living facilities and nursing homes, it's just like wintering in Florida, minus the big house near the beach, enough money for a private duty nurse, and a kind Jamaican woman to attend to all your needs. Though not quite prisoners, many residents are confined to hospital beds, barely ambulatory or locked forever out of their own minds, and receive few or no visitors. Mama checked her own mother out of the facility where the siblings had put her. She set up a hospital bed in our living room, made us use the back door to come and go until Granny went. If she were alive today, Mama would have a grandmother in every room and be Clorox wiping everything. Coronavirus be damned. She knew poor, broken, and old did not mean indignity, and it certainly didn't equal death. Two of my own relatives passed away in nursing homes at the beginning of the year. One of the things was hard to separate from all this news watching was to try to figure out whose responsibility it was to fix it, to monitor it, to have us in a good situation. And most people know what the truth is behind all that. So I'm going to read maybe just part of this very long poem called Mendacity. And it's in a dictionary format. So if you look at it on a page, what you see is a 2-page long single definition as it might appear in a dictionary if it was an actual real definition. But I've adapted some things in it to make it work so that it looks like a definition form, but it's actually a critique of a certain individual. This is called mendacity. Noun, plural, mendacities. 1, the quality of being mendacious, untruthfulness, tendency to lie. 2, an instance of lying, falsehood, derived form mendacious, adjective. A mendacious person might say, you can call it a germ, you can call it a flu, you can call it a virus. You know, you can call it many different names. I'm not sure anybody even knows what it is. 1, outright lying in a fast food drive-through and then biggie-sizing it, such as nobody knew there would be a pandemic or epidemic of this proportion, or it's just going to disappear. One day it's like a miracle. It will disappear. 2, telling a bold-faced lie without basis, such as Americans will have access to vaccines, I think, relatively soon. 3, to improvise, to just make shit up, to raise lying to an art form such as anybody that needs a test gets a test. We, they have the tests, and the tests are beautiful. 4, to lie so blatantly, it is assumed that you'll go straight to hell so quickly that in the moment, one's pants catch on fire. Such as, I've always known this is real, this is a pandemic. I felt it was a pandemic long before it was called a pandemic. I've always viewed it as very serious. 5, to distort the truth and then to compound the lie by attempting to distance oneself from it with flat out denials or by casting aspersions such as, that's a nasty question, or that's fake news, or deflections like, every country spreads lies about the coronavirus. What's the big deal? And then ultimately shifting the blame to others, the previous administration, the Chinese, the liberal media, Andrew Cuomo, etc. In the same house as white lie, but significantly whiter, like European colonizer white or Ku Klux Klan robe white. Also see xenophobic white, often soft pedaled as simply dishonesty, prevarication, untruthfulness, hyperbole. It's anonym, veracity, as in 44 is greater than 45. I think you can figure that out. One of the things that struck me as a fan of pancakes and syrup for breakfast is when the corporate gods of Aunt Jemima, the brand, made an announcement that they were finally going to change their brand and their logo once again. After decades of being accused of using these racist images on their boxes of pancake mix and their bottles of syrup.